Well, I appreciate my colleagues raising this issue because we are getting a lot of questions about it. The supplemental appropriation that we considered last year was for 7 elementary school playing fields, is that right? That we considered we passed a supplemental appropriation just for playing fields.
It was $750,000,
Okay.
and we have identified potentially 5 schools.
5 schools.
As long as the funds can, because the scope is going to vary from school to school. We identified 5, but
What's going to vary from school to school?
the scope of work
Okay.
is going to vary from school to school.
Okay.
And what we said was, this is a pilot program,
Okay.
and we're going to go as many schools as we can.
And have you
with,
committed that
750.
750,000 yet?
We are spending pretty much most of it right now. We are anticipating the 5 school, the 750 is not enough to do all 5 schools. We're anticipating maybe about 3 schools is what we can complete with that 750 that was approved.
Are you anticipating the installation of artificial turf at any of those schools?
It's been on a discussion, and it's been a desire expressed by some of the schools, but that decision has not been made yet.
And let me just
But
add to that. It was
Andy Zuckerman was just shaking his head no.
It was just Flora Singer that in the community conversation had suggested that they would like to have artificial turf, but it's not our intention to do that. The others, you heard from Rolling Terrace wanted the natural grass for the play space. The other schools wanted some combination of playground, non-grass type of surface, whether it's more blacktop or equipment, mulch with combined with grass. Flora Singer was the only one that specifically said we would like a turf field. We don't anticipate being able to do that, just strictly out of affordability. That's just not something that's going to be outside of the scope of what we can do. But that was something that was on the table for that school that they discussed.
So the big question that I have in general with respect to county government, I am unusual in Montgomery County government in that I have a low tolerance for redundancy. We have a lot of duplicative structures throughout, and on a number of occasions I've asked why do we have them, and there's pushback from institutions and we haven't pursued it. Why do we not work? I have a response from you, Andy, a physical education teacher who's been very active on this issue, wrote to me and to you, and you responded to her, and you said you're working closely with the Parks Department. The Parks Department is good at this. They know how to do this. Why do we not turn the funds over to the Parks Department and ask them to maintain more fields on school property? Why do we need multiple agencies with multiple warehouses with, duplicative fleets of lawnmowers and duplicative fleets of seeders? And why not just have an agency maintain turf in Montgomery County, and that being the Parks Department?
So I think that we have a goal to do that, and ironically, you may not believe me on this, we literally had a meeting at 2 p.m. today with Casey Anderson and Mike Riley that we had to move. It was our second meeting in the last 6 weeks to have this very discussion, because we have migrated a certain number of fields over to parks for maintenance, and today was another aspect of that conversation to talk about what are the next set of fields that we can move over. And when can we do that? And
Okay.
so we're in those conversations right now, and we literally had that meeting scheduled for this afternoon.
Okay, well, that's promising.
Yeah.
So that goes to my next question. I learned a lot about turf maintenance in 2015 when we were talking about the pesticide legislation. And it's great being a county council member. I mean, you got to be a generalist. You learn a lot of things about things you didn't ever know about before. I was walking with my son this morning around the athletic field at Tacoma Park Middle School, and I saw that they'd recently aerated it, which is what you need to do annually around this time of year before you seed it. And I told my son that. He's like, wow, Dad, how do you know that? I said, well, I'm on the county council. You learn all these things. But then once you seed it, it has to rest. And that's a challenge, but it has to happen. So that's what Mr. Rice was alluding to when it says communities have to make a choice. We're dealing with this on my own property. My wife runs childcare, and we just aerated and seeded, and the little kids can't play. They have to play on the play equipment. They can't run on the grass for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, so that the seed can take root and the field has to rest. And I know that when Parks brings online a new field, the resting period is even longer. I mean, it's months. So I don't think it works, and I do appreciate the thrust of Mr. Elrich and Mr. Hucker's questions, simply to say, well, we just can't do that. They have to be in use, 365 days a year. Whether it's you or whether it's parks, you're going to have to build into your thinking the capability of letting the field rest. You have to. There's no other way to maintain it.
Mr. Leventhal, you're absolutely correct. And just for information, as Dr. Zuckerman said, we've been having very long conversations with parks of having a common goal to turn all our school fields ultimately maintained by the parks. As of today, they are maintained close to about 110 schools out of 205 school fields.
Could you repeat those numbers, Mr. Song?
About 110 school fields are currently being maintained by
Okay.
parks.
Okay.
And
110 out of how many?
205 schools
Thank
that
you.
we have.
Including, I think, the one you were just referencing.
The
that was
Tacoma
area.
Park Middle School is one of the schools they fail. Now, parks, they have in-house crews to maintain certain number of fields, but some of the majority of the fields are also being contracted out. And I think council members probably will remember that the ICB board had some fund balance left over last couple of years and have funded about $500,000 last year and another $250,000 this year. And those funds are not coming to us. They're going to the parks to maintain more school fields. So exactly what you said is being done. More and more schools are being turned over to parks to be maintained. So we're kind of glad to see this cooperation and collaboration happening. And so we're not having that redundancy within the county agencies.
Okay, I just want to repeat for the record, because we are getting a bunch of emails on this. The funds that were appropriated by the council last year to address discrepancies and shortages in playfields are not being expended for the installation of artificial turf.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.